All right, so then we come to the third criteria, which of course is the textual features. So here the descriptors are that we use discerning language choices for particular purposes, the discerning combination of a range of grammatically accurate or appropriate language structures to achieve particular purposes, and the discerning use of spoken, signed, and non-verbal features and complementary features, if appropriate, to achieve particular purposes. So here we're looking at your pronunciation, phrasing and pausing, audibility and clarity, volume, pace and silence, your facial expressions, gestures, proximity, stance and movement, and graphics, still and moving images, design elements, music and sound effects, if appropriate. So firstly, let's look at the discerning language choices for particular purposes. So you need to sound authoritative and intelligent, but you still need to sound approachable and one of the people. So remember, this is a speech. You need to keep your language simple enough that people can understand it and react to it on the spot. They won't have the opportunity to reread it. Don't use unnecessarily big words because you won't sound smart, you'll just sound arrogant, and that's not going to help your cause at all. So we talked already about modality, but modality is important because it establishes the tone of the piece. It gives the reader an indication of how you feel about the issue or the topic. So if the tone's too strident or too aggressive, some readers are going to bitterly disagree and become really resistant to the message, or they'll at least look for alternative views to rebut your position. But in a persuasive speech, the modality needs to be high enough to create a sense of urgency and encourage people to take action. So it's a fine line between high modality but not being too aggressive. All right, so here's a list of words that range in terms of modality. So you're trying to use the words from the strongest column. So we talked earlier as well about the fact that words hold specific connotations. So tapping into these connotations not only increases the emotional impact on your audience, but it also acts as a form of shorthand, allowing you to convey maximum information in minimum words. So the second descriptor then is the discerning combination of a range of grammatically accurate or appropriate language structures, including clauses and sentences, to achieve particular purposes. Now, your sentence structure does need to be grammatically accurate, but it doesn't need to be overly complicated. Too many long, convoluted sentences is just going to cause your audience to lose your train of thought, and then they'll switch off. So using a variety of sentence lengths is a good way to add interest and impact to your speech. Very short and even one-word sentences can be really effective. So keep your sentences short. Use puns, wit, imagery, humour, any of those things that will connect you with your audience. Use a variety of sentence lengths. Consider the impact of the short standalone sentence, and use words that are associated with ideas and emotions. So you might talk about our society or our nation or our community. Totalitarianism. So if you're talking about, for example, the fact that Australia, which is supposedly a democracy, is forcing us to get the COVID jab, well, it's sounding much more like totalitarianism to me. And of course, people who live in a democratic society do not want to become totalitarian or communist. Un-Australian, the biggest insult you can pay somebody in this country is to refer to their actions as being un-Australian. And then referring to things as our duty makes us feel that ethical morality to do things. And then the last one, the discerning use of spoken, signed and non-verbal features to achieve particular purposes. So this is our pronunciation, our facial expressions, and any graphics that we might use. So a few things. As a speaker, you need to pay attention to the delivery of your speech. A good orator or public speaker uses passion and enthusiasm. They use energy, hand gestures. They will pause for effect, and they will vary their pitch, pace, pause, and volume. A good orator or a public speaker sounds knowledgeable, sounds authoritative or strong, trustworthy, like a leader, but relatable, moderate, in other words, rational. So you need to practice your speech so that you're familiar with it. It's really hard to persuade people if you sound like you don't really understand the topic, or if you have to read every word of what you're saying, it makes it very difficult to connect. You need to sound as if you care, because otherwise your audience simply will not. And if you sound bored, your audience definitely will be. And also remember, you can't persuade people while talking to your shoes. So if your head is down and your voice is heading down towards the ground, they're just going to give up listening. Make sure that you know how to pronounce keywords. Getting them wrong makes you sound like you don't really know what you're talking about, or that you're plagiarizing someone else's words. Speak clearly and vary your pitch, pace, pause, and volume. So have some louder elements, be careful with your pitch. Try not to take your words up at the end of a sentence because it becomes really annoying. Look at your audience so your words come out clearly and not muffled, and also so that you can make eye contact and connect. And don't underestimate the power of pause. Remember, you're giving your audience an awful lot of information to take in, and they have to have time to digest it. A half-second pause to you is going to feel like about 5 minutes, but it will be enough to just give your audience to digest what you've just said. Make sure you put energy in your voice. It's really hard to encourage people to take action if you're sounding bored or unenthusiastic. Now remember, if you make a mistake, just keep going. Only you know what you were supposed to say. If you carry on confidently, your audience won't even notice. It's only when you make a fuss that they realize something went wrong. And your reaction is going to alert them to the mistake far more than the mistake itself. Make sure you stand still. Don't wander aimlessly or shuffle from leg to leg. Leave your clothing alone and don't scratch, because all of these things make the audience watch your movements rather than listen to your words. Use gestures to reinforce keywords or points, but don't get too carried away with this and look like you're about to have some sort of a fit. Make eye contact with your audience. I've said that one a few times now. Now, if you're presenting this as a multimodal piece, you're going to have to consider the images that you use to accompany your speech. It's important that these images support and reinforce your key ideas. Don't just put your whole speech into your PowerPoint slides, and don't just use illustrations to make it look pretty. You need to use images, key quotations, key statistics, or facts that really help to reinforce your message and stir people into taking action. So, those are all of the descriptors that we need to meet to be able to do well in this task. So hopefully we've managed to cover all of them in this masterclass, and you now know how to get the top descriptors in every single objective.